Yo, what is going on everyone? Thank you for joining me for another video, and in today's video we're going to be doing a review and analysis for the most recent chapter of Jujutsu Kaisen, chapter 167. Now before we get into the video guys, if you guys do like what you see here, consider dropping a subscribe as well as a like and commenting down below what you think I should do in the future, as I do have a lot of anime and manga related topics, reviews, as well as just overall videos to go ahead and pump out for you guys. But without further ado guys, let's just go ahead and jump straight into the video. Starting off the chapter, we immediately begin with Kogane adding a rule from Higuruma, making it to where all players can give any amount of points to each other. With Itadori relieved as to finally completing his mission and adding in the point exchange rule, Hiruguma proceeds to only give Itadori 1 point. Hiruguma explaining to Itadori that the reason he only gave him 1 point is so that both of their curse techniques could stay intact for at least 19 days. Hiruguma then proceeds to leave with Itadori asking him, "What is it you're going to do now?" With Itadori desperately asking Hiruguma, "If it's alright, we could really use your help." Hiruguma then tells Itadori that his curse technique, Sir plus 2 points, came from the judge and prosecutor he killed before coming to Tokyo. It is then that Hiruguma finally reflects on everything that has happened since he's awakened his curse technique, and then tells Itadori he may turn himself in, as well as telling him he'd likely end up hating himself even more than he does now if he were to stay by Itadori's side. With Hiruguma telling his final farewells to Itadori, he then leaves with Itadori left to ponder the situation. The chapter then transitions to Fushiguro as he is brought face to face with Reggie. Reggie, immediately noticing how strong Fushiguro is, asks him to drop his guards, as he says he can tell that his Shikigami is quite something. He is strong, also stating that if he were weak, he would just be another easy target to kill. After praising Fushiguro, Reggie then asks him to ally with him. Fushiguro then evasively answers the question by asking him what does he mean. It is then that now Reggie is now unfolding everything there is to know about the culling game. Reggie then asks Fushiguro what he believes the culling game to be. Fushiguro answers it's a ritual that takes advantage of cursed energy belonging to players inside the barrier. In doing so, also giving more elusive answers, as though he says to himself, "I'll keep quiet about Tengen." With Reggie taking immediate notice of Fushiguro's knowledge of the culling game, then asks him, "What, are you friends with Kenjaku or something?" Being completely blindsided by this question, Fushiguro then thinks to himself, "I thought you'd be the one, a sorcerer who's colluding with Kenjaku." After seeing how Fushiguro was shaken by this previous question, Reggie then elaborates by saying, "What you just said about taking advantage of players' cursed energy is most likely a facade. No, rather than a facade." It is then that Reggie dives into his reasoning as to why he believes Fushiguro's explanation of the culling game is not so, or so maybe a secondary plan of Kenjaku. Reggie then lists his basis for the three as following of number of players, differences in abilities of the players, and the barrier rule. With these three rules, Reggie then explains that if approximately 1,000 players were to be equally distributed in 10 colonies, there would be 100 people in each colony, then stating, among these players there are sorcerers that are exceptionally strong such as Kashimo and Higuruma. Reggie continues by explaining this theory to Fushiguro that if this were the case, 60 sorcerers would have already been culled by those two alone. There should at least be one person in each colony that is on a similar level, bringing them to a conclusion that only the strong will survive, as well as the culling game being brought to a deadlock later on. Reggie then moving on to the teleportation aspect of the culling game. He states that scattering people is probably one of its objectives, but its number one goal is most likely to stimulate an early secondary awakening in modern sorcerers. With the teleportation, many have died from the teleportation alone. So going along with this is that if they wanted to take advantage of players' cursed energy, they would want as many long drawn out battles amongst sorcerers as possible. Having told Fushiguro all of these different bases that he has, he figures that all of these rules are just a cover-up for his true objective. It is then after this conversation between both Reggie and Fushiguro that we get a panel of Kenjaku meeting with Chinese officials. In this panel, Reggie explains to Fushiguro that he believes that Kenjaku will drop a bomb after there are only the strong ones left. Upon Kenjaku meeting with the Chinese officials, he thanks them for inviting him. In order to prepare for this theoretical bomb, it is then that Reggie then tells Fushiguro that it is this reason alone that he is recruiting strong players for his cause. And in true Fushiguro fashion, he then points out that she doesn't seem very strong to him. He objects to Fushiguro's claim and tells him that she is only used for bait. Fushiguro then presses Reggie by telling him a rule that will allow all players to exchange points will be added soon, so then he should hand over all of his points. After having tried to negotiate, Reggie then tells Fushiguro that his negotiation failed. It is then that Fushiguro is blindsided by one of Reggie's allies and is dealt with promptly by one of Fushiguro's Shikigami. The Shikigami then take this unknown ally and throw him out the window, where Nu then catches him. Now having this unknown ally of Reggie's being held hostage, Fushiguro then tries to negotiate with Reggie once more in order for him to hand over all of his points. Reggie then tells him that he sees through his act, as he was deliberately trying to save his allies in an attempt to gain their points, with Reggie telling Fushiguro if he does not come at him with the intent to kill, he will never lay claim to his points. It is then that Fushiguro takes a look to his left and sees a dropping eyeball. With the chapter ending, the text reads, "The difference in resolution will decide life or death." And it is then that the chapter ends with us leaving to believe that an epic conclusion between Fushiguro as well as Reggie and his ally will be underway in chapter 168. Alright guys, that's going to go ahead and wrap up chapter 167 of Jujutsu Kaisen. And what did I think of the chapter? I thought it was a really great chapter. Personally, I thought it wasn't as good as last chapter, chapter 166, just because I felt chapter 166 was a little more heartfelt and emotional rather than this chapter, which is more pacing and building up to, I believe, next chapter, which is going to be a lot more action-oriented, as well as we're going to be seeing a lot more of what Kenjaku has planned outside of what they believe to be the true objective of the culling game. So with that, guys, I'm going to go ahead and sign out. If you guys want, go ahead and drop a comment. Let me know what you guys thought of this chapter, as well as what you think the true objective of what the culling game is for Kenjaku, as well as what you think is going to happen next chapter. So with that, guys, I'm going to go ahead and sign out, and I hope to see you guys soon. See ya!